Hello, everybody. Hello. We are ready to get started with a power panel right here. Quick questions. How many of you work in traditional media, legacy media? I won't call it old media because it's still around. How many of you work in creator media? How many of you think that you know what? Can we put all the creator media people on this side and all that? No, we're not going to do that. How many people think that the worlds are going to merge together? How many people think they're just going to continue to diverge? How many people think creators are going to win? Okay, well, that's what we're going to be talking about right here. I don't have any answers either, but we have this amazing session, people coming up to talk about it. So yeah, traditional media built the foundation. Creators are definitely building a future. But how are legacy platforms and these new platforms going to work together? Will they converge? Will they diverge? Are creators the ones who are going to shape what's next? We're going to talk about collaboration, about competition, about monetization and storytelling. I've got insiders coming up from both sides talking about how they're working together. So without any further ado, these are the speakers. They'll talk a little bit about themselves. I think I'm going to just say their names. When we're done, this is a 30-minute session. If you still want to ask questions, panelists, because we won't have QA here, we will go over and do an AMA over in Theater C. I will lead them over, and hopefully, like sheep, you will follow. And then we'll just chat for like 20 minutes or so about the issues that are raised or anything you want to ask or talk about. So without any further ado, my moderator here today, Denim Richards, who is founder and CEO of Opulent Entertainment Group. Don't come up yet. Wait, I'm going to invite you up. And then we also have here, Ty Randolph, board member and interim CEO of Rock the Bells. Kat Gallego, who is VP of strategy for social at TelevisaUnivision. RJ Larese, VP of talent and influencer at Paramount. And Michelle O, the co-founder at Roll AI. Now, Denim, the stage is yours. I did Ty already. Hey, by the way, give him a round of applause.
Is that it? That's it. Yeah. Pick this up. There it is. Oh, hello. Hello. Thank you for joining me. Okay. Not going to make this super heavy. Going to come in with a lot of energy, excitement, because I love doing panels. More importantly, I think this is a really, really interesting topic of conversation, especially in the year 2025 and beyond. Creators and future of media. I feel like if we want to, maybe the best way is we'll just go this way. And if you want to kind of give like a log line of who you are, and then I would just also jump into where you see the future as far as creatives versus sounds like we're in like a Marvel movie. Traditional media, etc. So without further ado, go ahead.
Of course. Hi, I'm Kat Gallego Pinzon. I'm the VP of social strategy at TelevisaUnivision, and I lead the paid social team within the company, and we function as a internal paid media agency. And we also, source ID content creators for all of our branded campaigns.
I'm RJ Larese. I oversee all things creator and influencer within Paramount.
I'm Michelle O. I am the co-founder and general manager at Roll AI, and we're a video AI platform that lets you create production-grade videos using just phones.
Hi, I'm Ty Randolph. I am board member and interim CEO at Rock the Bells, which is LL Cool J's entertainment company. Prior to this, I was the co-founder and CEO of Heartbeat, which is Kevin Hart's media company. And I spent a whole lot of time before then right at the intersection of consumer tech, media, and commerce. And I think when I think about the future of sort of legacy media, like creators versus legacy media, I don't think that's the right framing. I think it's creators as the new media companies. And what we're seeing now is a great sophistication and scaling, but still a lot of decentralization. And we have to kind of make sense and develop an infrastructure around what is probably the most seismic media shift of all time.
Yeah, I think this is the interesting thing because a decade ago, there was never really a strong conversation about creators being independent. Our whole life was about be told that we're good, sweet, and smart. And then one day, one of these giant corporations will come and swallow us up and it will build all the things around us. Whereas now you see a lot of these creators adding so much value to the point to where they're able to create their own video platforms. And now a lot of traditional media is saying, we'll just take you in how you are. You don't have to change much. We just want everything. So what does that look like? I mean, you at Paramount, what does that look like, at the Paramount world?
Yeah, so I always get a little weird when people talk about the versus thing, because I've been at Paramount now for almost 7 years, overseeing the creator activations that we do. And we've done scripted TV shows. We've made movies. We've done development deals. We've hired creator consultants within the company. So it's been merged for me for a long time already. I don't know that our competitors are necessarily doing the same thing, so that's on them. But at least with us, our creators all live under one umbrella, and we work with them more than just transactional brand deals. So I think you're going to see creators being creators and traditional media being traditional media. But I also think you're going to see some companies that are in traditional smartly embracing creators and doing really cool things with them. And I think you're just going to see more and more and more of that as the years go on.
And at TelevisaUnivision, actually the same thing. We're actually building programming around our creators. So for one of our award shows last year, we had, 4 new award categories that were for creators. And we're, bringing them into the shows. They're hosting, live programming. So we're taking them, beyond the phone. We're making sure that we're learning from them, because they have the authentic voices, the cultural relevance, and that built-in audience. So we're, really seeing the value of partnering with the creators, like beyond just promote the content, as you were saying, but actually co-creating content, because that allows us, to extend our programming across other platforms, and then really speaking to that community that we serve in a more genuine way.
Yeah, and I think something that's super interesting, especially with this topic, especially with creators, I feel like there's a larger opportunity for diversification, right? As far as, it's broadened with all ethnicities now, with all different ethnic groups. And I think that it's allowed for a lot more access into the market. And, and I think that that's something that it almost is like what, like American Idol was doing before, where you would just have all of these, ethnic groups that were coming. And now all of a sudden you're seeing these giant countries from all over the world love this artist because they're coming from Asia or from Africa, whatever it may be. And I think now you're starting to see from the creator side this opportunity where these literally whole countries and continents are able to embrace them. So I'm wondering from your guys' perspective, you have creators that's now they have better access to it because of technology. Where do you see, we're not going to turn this in. We had a Zoom call about this a month ago. And so we're not going to turn this into the doom and gloom of AI, but we definitely have to have a conversation about it. As the creative economy, I think one of the things that's interesting about it for creators is it kind of levels the playing field. So talk a little bit about, let's have a conversation for a moment about AI and what that does and how that actually helps a lot of more of the independent creators be able to kind of keep up with what some of these giant corporations have been able to do.
Yeah, I think, as the, as the, AI person on the panel. So I think it's really interesting. And of course, AI is now becoming this hot topic. It's like you can't be at a panel at a conference without having AI somehow inserted in it. But I actually think what's really interesting is, beyond AI and before this, that RJ was just saying that this started a way long time ago. And it's not before AI, there was just this like democratization of this digital economy, right? It's like going beyond traditional media formats, how social media is actually taking eyeballs and actually taking away that, audience, just like the audience attention, right? And so now it's like traditional media is competing with streaming, but is also competing with like TikTok and Facebook and all of these platforms that are free. So what's really interesting is that digital media trend has enabled this democratization where these creators from all ethnicities, all backgrounds can really create a niche and a following of like, people who are just like them all over the world. And that democratization has enabled sort of these creators to emerge with influence, with strength, with these audiences that they've now nurtured for years with iteration. And the reason why I love creators, very similar to founders, is I see them as very scrappy entrepreneurs, right? they started from nothing. I mean, if you look at like Mr. Beast's first video over a decade ago, it's completely different from where he is now, right? And so the really interesting thing is that creators, you know, as Ty was saying, they're their own media machines, right? Like they've gone through the production, the marketing, the scripting, the everything. So they know their audience so well. And I think the data and the innate sense that they have of their audiences is actually what makes them really unique and valuable, I think, to the networks. And so beyond AI, I mean, I think AI, you know, helps all of these creators. It helps everyone in this industry do faster, better things, because now, you know, instead of having to hire a scriptwriter, you can just, you know, plug into ChatGPT and ask for feedback. And so it just makes you a lot more efficient. You know, there's video platforms like Roll that's enabling you to have really high production levels at home without having, you know, to hire a professional crew, things like that. So I think beyond AI, like this whole digitization of media has really, I think, you know, created this trend.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with some of that. You know, what was the stat today? Something like 500 million active users now on ChatGPT. So when we think about AI, I think it's time we stop talking about it as a technology and more about the new operating system, right? That's sort of just the framework in which we're operating. And in that context, it's a great accelerator. It has the promise and potential to be a great, you know, democratizer in terms of access, right? But identity and IP and your point of view, that's still the moat. So there's something like 90% of creators who are now using AI, but audiences say 60% of the time, at least now, they're still able to differentiate between AI-enabled or generated content versus something. Now, we all know the technology and the innovation is advancing at such a clip that number of detectability is going to go down. But that's why, from a creator perspective, that point of view is so much more important, right? Your lived experience, what you bring to the table, and that sort of like human experience and creativity. So one, I think that's really important as someone who champions both the art and the science of it all. I think we really need to center that. And then I think what that means from a creator perspective, to your point, is this acceleration opportunity to be able to play at a bigger scale, much faster, with smaller teams. There are these economies of scale that are just really exciting. And what does that mean for legacy media companies? To your point, it means thinking about partnership in different ways. You take Paramount, for instance. Paramount's actually an investor in LL Cool J's company, Rock the Bells. They're on the cap table. And I talk about this spectrum from a creator perspective when we think of these creators as companies. And, you know, it started out with endorsement. It was sort of like a pay to play scenario. And increasingly, we started having conversations about equity. How do I have some back end in the performance of my product? And now when you talk about the Mr. B's or the LL Cool J's or the Kevin Harts of the world and Kim Kardashians of the world, now real enterprise is being built around not celebrity, but creators' ability to activate communities down the funnel. And brands used to be built on television. Used to be built in mass media, but what we're seeing now is the fastest growing entrants in most categories are being driven by individuals and identity and not by institutions. However, institutions still have a huge amount of infrastructure, right? There's reach, there's process, there's people. And so on both sides of the equation, legacy media and creators highly incentivized to build the future together.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say.
I was going to you. I was literally going to you.
I'll take it. Traditional media has a lot to learn from creators, and creators have a lot to learn from traditional media. That's the reality. And so a lot of creators will work with them for a long period of time. I try to give them access to things that they themselves don't have access to now. And same thing, we get access to their best practices, things that are working for them. And I just think it works. And then if it doesn't, then you part ways and you've learned lessons with each other and you move on. But we've been doing this for a long time, even though people just started talking about it this year. People started talking about it because of Mr. B's show, but this has been going on for years now already. And that's just the biggest, most expensive example of it so far.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of my close friends, his name's Wadamaya. He's the largest YouTuber in Africa. He actually started as a engineer in China, and he started his first YouTube video just talking about his experience as a Ghanaian in China in 2011. And from there, it just picked up. And we have the conversation often, but I still think that with creators, you're never going to be able to usurp the lived experience, right? And I think as great as AI is, I think you use it as a catalyst. Oftentimes, like for example, in Africa, where most of my companies, every time you have a meeting, a proposal is needed, right? And nobody wants to be bogged down with weeks and weeks of a proposal. Yeah, okay. Sorry, my battery's back. Anyway, so I think that there's certain opportunities where you can use that, but I still think that creatives are so necessary to be the ones that are on the ground, because I think sometimes traditional media kind of became this thing where you have somebody in like New York City that never leaves the top building, doesn't go to any of the places. And then you have these artists, kind of ragtag entrepreneurs that are like, I'm here with you, people on the ground doing the legwork. And I still think that there's a level of nuance, that I think you're always going to want in anything that you're watching, right?
Or that emotional connection. Because
Right.
no matter what, people are still consuming content, like how they consume it, changes, but they're still looking to, cry, laugh, like feel that emotional connection. So beyond AI, like you still need that, like you were mentioning, like that creator to add that.
So for creators specifically, I mean, I think how many creatives is it mostly traditional, mostly creatives in the room? Mostly everyone's looking exactly like I did when I was in high school, like couldn't be less interested. Okay. So for creatives, what would you say is the largest hurdle now coming up into the next thing? I always say like you reach the top of one mountain, then you're at the bottom of another one. So I think now as they're starting to, I think we went from like, oh, it's like creatives are like this cute thing that's over there that occasionally they do something good, to where now they're really being brought into the room and at the table and have real viability. And I think you were talking about like at Paramount, bringing them in and kind of showing them best practices and things like that. What would you say? And obviously with, you have Kevin and you have LL, you have all these great people. What would you say for creatives now, especially for this next generation, is kind of this new thing that they need to understand with this kind of world that they're going into, whether that with access to media or to monetization? What does that look like?
So I think the mediums have changed, but the largely remain the same. So sorry guys, mic is
Mikey.
my mic is miking. Thank you. Oh, so much better. So let me make sure this one doesn't pick up the feedback. So on one end of the spectrum, you look at the Kevin Harts of the world, or these sort of like, really scaled individuals, but there's 50 million folks, and I don't know if that's the US or globally, who identify themselves as creators. So what does that tell you? That just like this walled garden between creators and companies are breaking down and the lines are blurred, so are the walled gardens between consumers and creatives. Most of us as consumers, if you're on social media, if you're participating in the digital economy, you're creating. You've got a Pinterest board, you've got a TikTok account, and you have outsized influence in ways that audiences of the past did not, right? And creators, like so, even though before it used to be a very small segment of actors and writers and producers and musicians who were trading and transacting with corporations, now it's a bigger pool, but it's still all about the value exchange, right? And so I think for so long when we talked about creators, and I spent a lot of time on the advertising side, doing influencer marketing investment via WPP and Publicis before I was on the entertainment side. And we would look for reach back in the day, and it was virality was sort of the goal. And I would say to creators, really focus on your value proposition. So sure, reach is important as an indication of your penetration with your audience, but it's really about what actions can you incite your audiences to take. And that level of engagement and that specificity about what your audience is really interested in and what they're interested in you for is critical, because that is investors, whether it's, someone's licensing your media or doing a brand deal with you, they're looking for a propensity to take action. And the other piece of that I would say is that along those lines, it was all about virality. Now it's about vertical integration. So if creators are now companies, you need to think about how to expand that value proposition across multiple touch points. So if you're on one channel, how do you make sure that you're porting that audience into a direct-to-consumer relationship? Sounds old and lame, but do you have their email addresses? Do you have a real relationship with your consumer that you can port with you where you want to go, and how much can you understand about them? So it's great to create content, but to really create transactional value for the folks that you're going to do business with is where I would point my attention.
And yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting, right? Because the democratization of anyone becoming a creator is its own enemy, right? Like literally anyone can become a creator. So how do you really rise above the noise? And I think, going back to sort of, creators as their own entrepreneurs and really understanding their audiences. So sorry to bring back the tech thing, but like, a concept that we have in tech is called product market fit, which I'm sure some of you heard of. But the definition of product market fit is when you have a product that's found its specific market so that you actually have customers and users who come out, actually achieve value from your product and are willing to pay for it. And so what that means in more layman's terms, what I think of is now you're getting a pull for your product instead of a push. Instead of being like, hey, I'm going to promote myself, be on all the channels, like get my name out there. But I think when you kind of like, you have to create this feedback loop, right? To say like, okay, I'm going to put out, a video, going back to the Mr. Beast example, it's like his videos back then are so different what they are now, but it's like, how do you create that feedback loop with your audience, that engagement? So it's like, oh, I put out this thing, really understanding the data. Like, did that work? Did people like it? Okay, I'm going to make more like that. Is that working? Am I on the right path? And you kind of like take these little steps until you like magically one day get product market fit. And all of a sudden you have like 1 million views on YouTube, 3 million views on YouTube, and you've kind of achieved that. So I think those that will rise above the noise are one that are actually dedicated to that iteration, to that feedback loop of actually really, really understanding their audience, getting their niche, like finding that value that people are actually deriving from their content and being able to, find their own voice.
I think the most challenging thing right now for creators is there are a lot of big creators. That's great. But creator to being their own media brand is the biggest jump that I see. And one of the things that I see people make a lot of mistakes with is on the business side with business decisions. And when you're at a Paramount or when you're at a media company, you've got a lot of business people. You've got a huge staff. You've got a lot of experts in their field making decisions. I see creators all the time who want to be Jimmy, who want to be those bigger creators, but they have really bad business people around them, and they're never actually going to go to the next level because they've surrounded themselves with their cousin or some guy that lives in their local town or whoever. And 99% of the time that doesn't work. There's a massive creator, over 10 million on social, and we used to have an amazing working relationship. He brought in some internal person, and I won't work with them again until he brings in someone else, because they're making really terrible, not well-educated business decisions that I would say regardless of my title or not, or where I worked or not. And I just think that when you're at a media company, there's an interview process. You meet all these people, sometimes to the company's detriment. You go through 12 interviews, whatever. A lot of times I meet creators' right-hand people, and they don't know the space at all. They're making their creator look bad. And then that creator is never going to elevate to that next level of being a successful media brand.
Or not partnering with like the right brands, not, they want to make sure, creators to do well, that they're using the product, because like users know, that it's their community. They know like, okay, well, they're recommending this brand or this product, and okay, they really would not use that because that doesn't align with the content that they're doing. Because at the end of the day, as a creator, like you're building your community and that's your brand. Because you build community, then you build trust, and then trust then incites that action, right? Whether it's to buy a product, download an app, sign up to a service. So we see that, challenge with creators and not being, authentic with their brand partnerships.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing, especially for creatives. And I think maybe a larger, more of a personal question. I think it's the sustainability for creators, right? Where it's like, some of them are 22, 23 years old, and, the joke is funny now. And then their audience grows up and gets married and has kids and all the things. And then you're still trying to do the same things at 23, at 34. And it's like, you didn't pivot, right? And I think that sometimes that is, oftentimes creators don't focus on that. And obviously for us, with Paramount, with Yellowstone, the kind of product market fit of that, it was like, we found a great niche of the world, right? That's like, we love everything cowboy. And then everything just became, all the products that ended up almost getting developed were coming in from social media. Why don't you have this? And why don't you have that? And then all of a sudden we're in New York and going, oh, there should be a board game. There should be this. There should be that. So I think it's really interesting that concept of that. But I'm also wondering for creatives, you know, when you're with these larger corporations like a Paramount, things of that, they have time, right? They have been able to pivot. They've moved off of things in certain aspects of it, pivoting gently, right? They've been nudged in different directions, but they've lasted, right? They've been around for decades. There's not a lot of creators that can say, oh, we've been around doing this creatively for decades. So I'm wondering, I guess, Ty, we'll start with you. What does that look like, for creatives for you, especially for the younger generation? Obviously you had Kevin was doing the stand up and then went into the television this. But what does that look? I know this is like, what is happening? I know. It's all great. Is it me? It's her. It's you. Oh, it's over there. Over there. Okay, it's over there. So what does that look like? What would you say your biggest advice would be for creatives as far as, you talked a little about the vertical integration aspect, but as far as also having the longevity and being able to pivot off of what kind of got them there?
I really think it's a combination of everything that you just heard on the stage. And I will actually use LL Cool J and Kevin as great examples, not just because, you know, I've worked with them both in the past, but because they both have had decades-long careers that have seen significant innovation and disruption in their business model. So if you look at someone like LL Cool J, who was literally, his career is 40 years. I think he started when he was 15 or so. And so at that point, folks were buying vinyl, and hip hop, when he first started, wasn't even a recognized genre. And so to adapt, to stay core to what your value proposition is, right? Like this love of the art, but to continually develop business acumen and be flexible enough to modify not what your core values are, but how you translate that based on how technology is evolving, how audiences are evolving, how other business models, record labels do businesses very differently. The Spotifys, the YouTubes of the world weren't even a thing. And so I think there's something to look at legacy creators who have built and sustained value propositions over a long time. And there are not a ton of them out there, right? So the majority of these folks, just like the majority of companies that start in the media space, don't end up having that staying value. But I think it's a couple of things. It's a commitment to your purpose. And it's so easy with so much technology to get easily distracted by shiny objects. But at the end of the day, I always say, whether it's my career or any business plan I'm fashioning, I'm very specific about where I'm going. I'm very flexible about how I get there, right? And so I think for creators, I would say, what's your reason for being? What's your purpose? What's in it for your audience? And be willing to test and iterate that over time. And I think the big difference between when we're mentioning the Kim Kardashians of the world, the Mr. Beast of the world, it has been that constant iteration. It has been the getting the right team. That's critical, right? So much of what you see, they're wildly creative and influential people who are out there who don't have the teams around them doing the deals and making the business decisions, and who aren't educating themselves enough about what that looks like. And so I think that I tell every creator, whether or not they're a digital first creator, the moment requires a bit of alchemy. You have to be an artist and a scientist right now. And I think that is what will dictate staying power and value creation, right? You got to get up every day and say, what are my core values? What is the value I'm providing to my audience? What is the value I'm providing to my partners? And so aside from views, it's like, what do they actually get out of this? And if you can ask yourself that question and answer it in real time every day, I think that you'll have a sustainable career.
Love that. I want to go back and harp on this. I think the team is so critical. I have so many people, especially on the continent, wildly talented, but their manager is like they're an ex or a cousin, and you're like, you're never gonna go anywhere, and I can't take you anywhere because if you guys are hearing me out there in the world, please. Your cousin is great, but they probably don't understand the business. So does anybody else have it? We're wrapping up on our time, and I have people over there that are making sure that I'm good on time. Any other key things that you really want us to hit? Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Fire.
Think about the long term. So that involves hiring the right team. It means not just posting on TikTok, because if it goes away, you lose your entire revenue stream. I mean, it's just thinking more than just 2-3 years. You say you go viral, you get followers, you're building something. think about 5, 10, 15 years. That's what every major media company is doing. I'm not thinking about consumer products for next month. I'm thinking about consumer products for 2 years from now. Creators need, once they hit a specific threshold, need to start thinking about the same thing. And again, the hiring the right person is like the most essential thing. Hiring business people around you. You don't see development people who are just spending all the money. There are checks and balances. You need those same things to stop you from making really bad decisions.
And I think too, just real quick, I think one of the issues with that is that there's a lot of creators that are like, I started this by myself with, with my garage band, and it's going to be us against the world. And it's great until you get to a certain level. And then it's like, yeah, but now we're going into like big rooms with real people that write big checks, and they want to talk to grown-ups that have been doing this. And so I think that that's part of the key thing, is like understanding that you can have a team of people that you're still loyal to, but you also have to be willing to diversify outside of that so that there's other people that can take you to where you ultimately say you want to go.
And I think this might sound overly simplified, but I think just showing up and actually creating content on a regular basis, and continue to learn and evolve with all of the platforms. Because at the end of the day, it's like how I mentioned before, without your audience, without your community, like that's your brand. That's the only way that you're going to scale your brand, because you could, this day and age, you can buy followers, but they're, vanity metrics at the end of the day, but you can't really like make up or buy a community engagement.
And not to wrap up on a note of AI, but I think there's a lot of fear in media and Hollywood that AI is going to replace jobs. And as someone in the industry, I think we're a very long ways from AI sort of replacing the human in terms of the creative aspect. So think of AI as your friend, as someone that can scale you, make you more efficient, make you more like not having to do all the mundane tasks that you don't want to do. So when you're talking about teams and things, and just like think of AI as the tooling to make you a more efficient, better, smarter creator, because now without having to have a team, you can do a lot on your own by leveraging, AI and all of those different tools, but then so that you can focus on your craft, you can iterate. And so really being able to use, the tools at your disposal, because your competitors will be. So if you aren't adopting those things, then you'll be left in the dust.
And I made it with 10 seconds left. Look at that. Is that good? I did good. I did great.
All right, give it up to these guys. I'm going to take this mic. We had a mic die, so a moment of silence for the dead soldier for our microphone. Thank you all for putting up with everything. We are going over to stage C for an AMA with these guys for at least 20 minutes. We'll see where it goes. So once again, give it up for Denim and Kat and RJ and Michelle and Ty. And we will see you over if you want to ask them anything